Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So, Borderlands 4 just dropped its massive October 23 update, and I've got to say, this one feels like the first real turning point since the game launched. You know how updates sometimes sound big on paper, but when you actually get in the game, you realize it's just a handful of bug fixes and a new skin or two? Yeah, that's not the case this time. This update actually packs a mix of performance improvements, few gameplay adjustments, and a surprise event that genuinely changes up how the world feels for the next couple of weeks. So today, we're going to break it all down, talk about what's new, how it affects your current builds, and whether this is the patch that finally smooths out Borderlands 4 into the kind of experience players have been waiting for since day one. All right, so the biggest headline right now is the Horrors of Kairos event. It kicked off with this update, and it's running from October 23rd through November 6th, so it's a limited time deal. The vibe is very much a spooky seasonal thing. Think creepy new visuals across Chyros, world bosses that look like they've been through some kind of haunted experiment, and new event exclusive legendary gear that's definitely worth your time. There are two main items that everyone's chasing right now: the Murmur, which is a Tediore legendary assault rifle, and Skully, which is an Order legendary grenade. These both drop from world bosses on Kairos, and if you manage to snag one, it'll show up in your reward center like the other event rewards do. Ah. Now, what's cool about this is that Gearbox isn't just reusing old loot pools or slapping on Halloween skins. These are actual new pieces of gear with their own mechanics. And from what I've seen so far, Murmur in particular might shake up some of the mid-tier weapon metas. The Murmur is one of those guns that feels smooth and responsive right away. It's got that signature Tediore reload toss, but it adds a corruption effect that spreads damage in a small radius when the weapon detonates. So if you're into mob clearing or area control, this one's going to fit nicely into your setup. And then there's the Skully grenade, which is pure chaos in the best way possible. It's got a split delay pattern that makes it unpredictable, but super satisfying when you learn how to time your throws. These two alone give the event some meaningful grind potential. And since it's only around for 2 weeks, people are already out there farming like crazy. But let's not skip over the other half of the update, because this patch isn't just about the limited time content. Gearbox rolled out a serious round of stability improvements and performance tweaks, which is something a lot of players have been asking for. If you've been dealing with crashes, FPS dips, or multiplayer desyncs, you'll notice the difference pretty quickly. The dev team mentioned that they targeted a wide range of crash reports and memory leaks, especially during co-op sessions. And that's honestly huge, because Borderlands 4 is one of those games that's way more fun with friends. But technical issues have been killing that vibe for a lot of people. After this patch, co-op feels way smoother. Load times between zones are down, hit registration feels tighter, and there's noticeably less input lag when using certain elemental effects. It's one of those under-the-hood updates that you can actually feel without even reading the patch notes. They also addressed a bunch of UI and accessibility updates. The menu system got a small but much-needed refresh. It's easier to navigate inventory tabs now, item comparison is a little clearer, and there are better contrast options for text. Accessibility-wise, they added expanded colorblind settings and made it easier to remap certain controls that used to be locked. It's not flashy stuff, but honestly, this kind of polish adds up and makes a difference in how comfortable the game feels over longer sessions. And if you've been playing on console, you'll be happy to know that the optimization pass helps reduce stuttering during combat-heavy moments. The game just feels more stable, like it's finally running the way it was supposed to. Now, the other big talking point in this update is balance tuning. There's been a lot of chatter in the community about how certain weapons have been way too dominant since launch. Things like pistols and assault rifles were running the show for most players, while other weapon types, like SMGs and certain shotguns, were falling behind in both power and consistency. This patch is the first real attempt to bring that back into alignment. Gearbox went in and adjusted damage curves, fire rate modifiers, and elemental proc chances for several weapon classes. So, if you've been relying on a specific loadout that feels like it just melts everything, you might notice some changes. Some weapons have had their crit multipliers toned down slightly, while others, especially underused gear, got buffs to make them more viable. It's not a total meta overhaul, but it's definitely noticeable enough to make people rethink their builds. There were also some quiet adjustments to enemy scaling, especially for higher tier encounters. Bosses on Chyros, in particular, have had their health and resistances tuned so that the fights feel more dynamic. You can't just face tank your way through them anymore, especially not on mayhem-like modifiers. You actually need to manage positioning, elemental matchups, and crowd control a bit more carefully. It's a small thing, but it gives the combat loop more depth, especially when you're farming during the event. And since we're talking about bosses, it's worth mentioning that the drop rates for the event legendaries are surprisingly generous this time around. You don't have to spend hours upon hours grinding to get a shot at Murmur or Skully. You can realistically farm them with a few solid runs, which is a nice change of pace from some of the earlier Borderlands grind events. I also want to touch on how the update feels from a progression standpoint, because this is something Borderlands 4 has struggled with. A lot of players felt that the endgame loop lacked motivation. There were cool guns, sure, but once you had them, there wasn't much else to chase. This event, combined with the balance pass, actually helps reintroduce that feeling of purpose. Suddenly, builds that used to feel stale have new potential because of how some gear interacts with the latest tuning changes. I tried swapping a few components on my elemental build, and the difference was night and day. The new weapon synergy opens up fresh combinations that weren't really viable before, especially with the adjusted status effect scaling. It's the kind of patch that rewards experimentation again, which is exactly what you want in a looter shooter. The developers also hinted that this update lays the groundwork for future seasonal rotations. So while Horrors of Kairos is a Halloween-themed event, the backend structure seems designed for ongoing limited events. That's a good sign. It means they're not treating this like a one-off thing. They're building a system that can support regular world events with unique loot and themes. If they keep this up, Borderlands 4 might finally get that steady content rhythm that keeps players engaged between major DLC drops. Speaking of which, there's also a subtle story connection hidden in the event. Without spoiling too much, some of the NPC dialogue around Chyros references the aftermath of the last major story mission and hints at a fracture opening somewhere in the wastelands. It's probably setting up whatever's coming next, but it's interesting to see them weaving event lore directly into the main narrative. It makes the world feel more alive, more reactive, instead of just static hubs that reset after every patch. Now let's talk real talk for a second. Does this update fix everything? No, not completely. There are still some lingering bugs like occasional enemy pathing glitches and rare visual clipping on certain environments. Some players have reported a few new audio hiccups after the patch too, especially with weapon reload sounds cutting out mid-combat. But overall, this is easily the most stable the game's felt since launch. It's the kind of patch that doesn't just slap on new content, it fixes the foundation, so when the next wave of content arrives, it can actually stand on solid ground. If you're someone who dropped Borderlands 4 early because it felt rough or unpolished, this might be the perfect time to come back. The performance gains alone make it worth reinstalling, and the event gives you something fun to chase right out of the gate. There's that sweet spot again where loot feels rewarding, enemies feel fair, and the world feels active. And that's something the franchise has always been great at when it's firing on all cylinders, making chaos feel fun rather than frustrating. For me personally, the best part of this update is how it reignites the sense of experimentation. I've been running a hybrid build focused on elemental crit chaining, and after this patch, it feels brand new again. The updated status effect mechanics and improved weapon variety give you way more flexibility in how you approach fights. You can get creative again, mixing up skill trees and seeing what works, instead of just sticking to the one meta loadout that everyone was using last month. That's the Borderlands magic, messing around with weird combinations and watching everything explode in unpredictable ways. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better. With the Halloween season atmosphere already in full swing, the Horrors of Kairos event adds that perfect touch of chaos and charm that suits the series. The eerie sound design, the glowing environmental changes, and even the small touches like altered loot chest designs, it's all there. It's stylish, it's seasonal, and it gives you a reason to keep playing daily until November 6th. Plus, the loot chase feels reasonable this time, not grindy to the point of burnout. You can realistically farm what you need in a few sessions, which respects your time and keeps things fun. So to sum it all up, this Borderlands 4 October 23rd update is more than just another patch. It's a solid step forward. It fixes the right things, adds fresh reasons to play, and teases what's next without overpromising. If you've been on the fence, this is the moment to jump back in. The world feels alive again, the guns feel good, and the chaos feels rewarding instead of messy. Gearbox clearly listened to feedback and took the time to deliver something that moves the game in the right direction. If they keep this energy up through future updates, Borderlands 4 could finally hit that sweet spot the series has been chasing for years. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for today's breakdown. I'm curious what you all think of the patch. Have you managed to get your hands on Murmur or Skully yet? How are you finding the new balance changes? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'll be checking them out and maybe featuring a few in the next video. Thanks for watching, and if you're out there farming Chyros bosses this week, good luck with your drops, and may your loot luck be better than ever.